The Judge Guillermo B. Guevara room located in the University of the Philippines Diliman Main Library houses the papers and memorabilia of Judge Guevara spanning a lifetime from 1886 to 1987. Guevara bore witness and played an active role in the founding of an independent Philippine nation. His was a life that spanned across 4 generations and 8 major upheavals in Philippine history. Guevara played many roles in many facets of society. The man known as Emong to his friends lived a full life, one that bore a proud, long-lasting heritage for the Filipino people.
The President of the Philippines hereby confers the Order of Kalantiao, First Order, upon Judge Guillermo B. Guevara for his distinguished achievements in the fields of law, education, economics, and social reform attained under various capacities during his active life, spanning 4 generations as jurist, law professor, industrialist, writer, author, agriculturist, and civic leader. For his lifelong devotion to scholarship and sterling example of personal diligence, determination, and hard work, which enabled him to pass the bar examinations without formal academic training and to earn a Master of Laws degree from the Georgetown University. For his subsequent decisive contribution to the meaningful growth of the law profession in the Philippines through his 18 years of meritorious service as a criminal law professor at the University of the Philippines and through his pace-setting studies and commentaries embodied in the many books which he authored. For legal scholarship of the highest order, which has enhanced his effectiveness as judge of the Court of First Instance of Pampanga and Bulacan, and later as City Fiscal of Manila, in the process giving him the distinction of being the first Filipino to appear, argue, and win a case before the United States Supreme Court. For his exemplary life, both as a public servant and as a private citizen, highlighted by his singular achievements in industrial and energy development, his widely acclaimed stature as a journalist, progressive industrial and business tycoon, and as the country's eminent representative in important international conferences in Madrid, Spain, and Geneva, Switzerland. Done in the city of Manila, this 15th day of February in the year of our Lord, 1982. Signed, Ferdinand E. Marcos, President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Born on the 10th of February 1886, Guillermo Guevara came into the world without knowing his father, Victor Buencamino, who passed away before his birth. He lived with his mother, Mercedes Guevara, on Sacristia Street near the Binondo Church. Guevara's early education was interrupted by the revolution against Spain, which saw the country transition from Spanish to American occupation. With the completion of his secondary education, Guevara enrolled at the Liceo de Manila, but he could only complete his sophomore year before his family's financial problems became a bigger concern. At the age of 17, Guevara took the civil service exam and passed it. Becoming a stenographer at the Clerk of Court of Land Registration, Guevara's hard work saw him rise up the ranks as well as continue his education, albeit informally.
I had to improvise then a system of self-education by acquiring, reading, and studying the standard textbooks which I had missed in the regular course. supplemented by extensive excursion into the works of Victor Hugo, Rizal, and Voltaire.
Guevara's work as a stenographer saw him observe numerous court cases, something that caused a spark within the young man.
My involvement in cases of general jurisdiction accentuated my interest in taking up law, not as a regular student, but as a law office student worker.
With the help of an uncle, Felipe Buencamino, who certified him as an apprentice in his law office, Guevara studied law for 3 years on his own. He passed the bar exam in 1912 without any formal law education. He then became a law clerk in the office of the City Attorney of Manila. 3 years later, he was promoted to advocate, making frequent appearances inside the courtroom. Still, something was nagging at him.
I could not say I came from Santo Tomas, Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, or Yale as on occasion. The other fellows would brag and josh among themselves. A sense of inferiority bothered me when I'm alone or in company.
Luckily for Guevara, a chance meeting with a fresh graduate from Georgetown University, Oyong Benitez, told him that he could qualify for graduate study there based on his membership in the Philippine Bar. Guevara received more than just the formal education. While completing his postgraduate degree in law at Georgetown, he also served as a volunteer secretary to then-Commissioner Manuel Quezon, who was spearheading the Philippine fight for independence in the U.S. Congress. Upon his graduation, Guevara was even asked to give a valedictory speech at the banquet, being the only Filipino in the class of 53 students. Upon his return to Manila, Guevara was promoted to the position of 5th Assistant in the new office of the City Fiscal of Manila. From handling mostly civil cases, Guevara quickly took to criminal cases as well, so much that no judge called him fighting fiscal, and a fiscal whose aim never misses its target. Soon he received another unexpected offer to teach criminal law in the newly founded National Law College.
I had never been an academician, and what face could I have to appear before the students? Teaching law when I myself did not study law?
His fears soon proved unfounded as he became magnificent in this task as well. Teaching became an active part of his life up until the Second World War.
My experience as a classroom professor in the National Law College ultimately built up my image and reputation as an authority in criminology or penal science and carried me for a permanent chair in the College of Law and Criminology in the University of the Philippines, a position I occupied from 1922 to 1942.
Many of his students became legal and political luminaries, among them Chief Justice Enrique Fernando, former Justice Secretary Cedfrey Ordonez, Senator Arturo Tolentino, Dean Rodolfo Palma, Justice Cecilia Muñoz Palma, and former President Ferdinand Marcos.
My father was a well-known disciplinarian. I remember when he was still teaching at UP College of Law, he was very demanding with his students' performance and recitation. He was very stingy with grades. I was even apprehensive about becoming his student. Thankfully, I was spared from that possibility when World War II broke out. Almost all notable lawyers, jurists, and statesmen from that era must have been under him.
Guevara soon added another title to his growing list of accomplishment, author. His wife, Asuncion Chong Palma, gave him the idea of writing down his notes and thoughts on criminal law. Lovingly, she wrote in longhand the dictation that formed the text of the book, The Penal Code of the Philippines, annotated. It was a collaborative partnership. Then on May 24, 1922, Judge was added to his resume as he was elevated to the title of Judge at Large of the Court of First Instance, presiding over cases in Bulacan and Pampanga for about 2 years. Guevara made his return to Manila at the dawn of 1924, with yet another promotion waiting for him. After being named an assistant to the city fiscal upon his return from America, he now was to be city fiscal himself.
I started the drive against graft, corruption, and criminality, which led to my becoming official racket buster.
As city fiscal, Guevara took on his biggest challenge yet when he defended the city of Manila in a case that the insular auditor filed to collect charges for water that was drawn from the Metropolitan Water Works. Guevara claimed this should not be so, citing special charter of the city that provided ownership of the waterworks. The Supreme Court of the Philippines sustained Guevara's contention, whereupon the insular auditor appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Dispatched to Washington, D.C. in the first half of 1927, Guevara argued in front of 9 American justices, among whom was Chief Justice William Howard Taft, the 27th President of the United States. Fiscal Guevara was the first Filipino to appear and argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court. More importantly, he won the case.
It was a vivid moment of triumph for me, of pride for my country, appearing before the highest court of my country's rulers and winning a case against the government of my mother country. I left the U.S. holding its Supreme Court with highest respect in my heart for its unflinching loyalty to law, to truth above all.
Because of his reputation of being a fearless prosecutor, he was assigned by the Philippine Supreme Court as sole investigador to the bar scandal of 1927. His mandate was to spare absolutely no one, no matter what the consequences. He followed these instructions, convicting the guilty parties, which included prominent personalities, and caused the resignation of a justice of the Supreme Court. Guevara proved his unwavering sense of duty over friendship, as one of the accused was a close personal friend of his wife Chong.
With his sterling character and unerring aim to the prosecution of corruption, Judge Guevara would be even more relevant today than in his own heyday. How I truly wish that there were more Judge Guevaras today, where corruption has seeped in all levels of our society. His fearlessness, independence, and love of country are more than ever needed to eliminate this cancer from Philippine society.
In Guevara's initial foray outside of government service, he became the senior partner of Vicente Francisco and Claro Recto in the law firm Guevara, Francisco and Recto. Though the firm was short-lived, a world of opportunity still awaited Guevara. For all his success serving the Philippine government, there was still something nagging at Guevara, the notion that he could still do something more for his fellow Filipino.
I was making no contribution to the sum of production itself, without which human existence would be meaningless. In other words, getting somebody sent to jail is not quite the same as planting a seed in the soil to produce a flower or a fruit to give joy or sustain life.
To satisfy his desire to contribute even more to society, Guevara turned to entrepreneurship. In 1934, he went into the rubber business with the Mabuhay Rubber Shoes as a family corporation with his wife Chong. This business was the offshoot of a debt of gratitude to Guevara by a Japanese trader named Katsiburo Watanabe, whom the judge helped get acquitted from serving a 10-year prison sentence. Watanabe introduced a rubber shoe manufacturing technology using Japanese equipment he helped Guevara set up near his family residence. At its peak, this lucrative business venture was producing an average of 2,000 pairs of shoes per day, and its employees grew from 30 to 300. The business showed marks of Guevara's avid patriotism. Aside from adopting the company name Mabuhay Rubber Shoe Factory Incorporated, the shoe themselves were branded as Ang Bayani. Unfortunately, during World War II, the Japanese took over Mabuhay Rubber, considering it a strategic industry. They paid in Japanese currency in a pseudo sale, and with the proceeds, Guevara bought agricultural lands in Tarlac, Pangasinan, and Quezon Province, which were developed after the war. During the American liberation, regrettably, the Mabuhay Rubber Shoes factory was burned. After the war on December 27, 1946, Guevara's beloved Chong passed away to the great sorrow of the Guevara clan. His family pledged to preserve her memory by imitating her devotion to duty and genuine love for fellow men. Guevara's initial private entrepreneurial success harmonized well with his duties as a public servant. He was appointed member of the newly formed Code Commission under President Manuel A. Rojas in 1947. Joining him were fellow commissioners Pedro Ilagan, Francisco Capistrano, Arturo M. Tolentino, and Commission Chairman George Bocobo. They drafted the Civil Code, which was signed into law by President Elpidio Quirino in 1949. Judge Guevara intended to replace the Penal Code with a Code of Crimes, which he authored, but unfortunately did not get enacted into law. The Code of Crimes remains a legal academic document available for advanced studies in the law profession. Soon, Guevara put up a new enterprise, converting World War II U.S. Army aircraft hangar surplus parts into big warehouses, gymnasiums, auditoriums, markets, and even churches. From these were built the Central Market at the corner of Quezon Boulevard and Zurbaran, the Ateneo's Loyola Sports Center, the Mapua Gymnasium, and the San Miguel Brewery in Polo, Bulacan. In 1952, again demonstrating his sense of nationalism, Guevara invested in a new industrial project in Mindanao, utilizing the power of the newly constructed Maria Cristina hydroelectric plant, locally quarried limestone and charcoal. This new plant was called Maria Cristina Chemical Industries Incorporated, later abbreviated to MCCI Corporation. In 1961, MCCI introduced the first subsidized corporate housing project of its kind in the Philippines with the establishment of Carbide Village. It provided housing, schools, and a social hall for its 300 employees. In June 1965, Mabuhay Vinyl Corporation was established to produce polyvinyl chloride PVC resins, caustic soda, hydrochloric acid, and chlorine, all of which are essential chemicals for drinking water and manufacturing of soap. In addition to being a successful entrepreneur, Judge Guevara also became very active as columnist for the Manila Times, the Daily Bulletin, and many other publications.
Looking back to my start as a government clerk of limited schooling, I can say I had the good fortune to have gone some way in doing my share of the day's work, earning opportunities and advantages which I felt privileged continuously to open and share with my neighbors in the sense of the scriptures.
For Judge Guevara in his lifetime embodied the ideals that now form the criteria of this search. Those whose lives have been touched by his achievements or by his person look up to this great man of Philippine law, and there are many. Judge Guevara's name and accomplishments are emblazoned in the annals of Philippine jurisprudence. He pioneered in criminal science while excelling in criminal law. Indeed, it is said that every Filipino lawyer who seeks the full meaning of dedicating one's life to the law will be spurred to higher endeavors by the life of this great judge.
On top of being a scholar, lawyer, judge, author, journalist, and entrepreneur, Guevara was a nationalist. This is evident not only through his written works, but also through the patriotic paintings drawn exclusively for him by the national artist Fernando Amorsolo. These are now on permanent display at the Judge Guevara room at the UP Main Library for everyone's appreciation.
We wanted to continue the tradition of hard work, honesty, and patriotic devotion to the country that our grandfather had set. For me, he serves as a role model, and with this library, we want his legacy to inspire others for generations to come. Lolo Emong dedicated his life and his works to the service of the country. So we wanted to impart his values not only to our own families, but also to the students and the entire Filipino society.
With his profound influence on multiple fields, including law, industry, and our nation itself, his legacy lives on in his students, many of whom have become notable personalities themselves. It is also a legacy enshrined here in the Judge Guillermo B. Guevara Foundation and room that will bear his name for the benefit of future generations.